It was a 32-day journey. You see, all my life, I wondered what it would be like to experience Passover in Jerusalem. I'd never been before. Neither had my boys. But see, I saved up this time for 3 years in a row, so I'd have enough to make the journey and to be able to take Alexander and Rufus with me. See, this was unique in and of itself, the fact that I would be there with my family to experience it. But what made this even better was that there was this rabbi being talked about. This Messiah, as they said, the one who had been promised. And here's the deal. We've heard these things before, but this time it was different because no one was doing the things that this guy was doing. I mean, he was healing the sick and he was raising the dead. He cast tons of demons out of a man of the Gadarenes. It was an interesting time. And overwhelmingly, I was becoming convinced that if I could just get to Jerusalem, that I might have a chance to see this for myself. See, hearing the stories is one thing, but to be an eyewitness to things I'd never heard of before. And so we got our things together, me and the boys, and we charted out. We headed to Jerusalem, and this was an interesting journey. I mean, for a number of reasons. First of all, just to have the boys in tow and try to make this journey was enough to make any parent have a difficult time, but there was this internal excitement inside of me. Like every step I took, there was a little bit of anxiety and anticipation because what would it have been like? Or what was he going to be like? What was the experience going to be like? There was so much I didn't know, but there was so much more I couldn't wait to see. And so my heart was beating, pounding, almost as if my heart's beat was beating as my feet pounded against the ground as we walked. Well, as we got closer and we got to Jerusalem, we'd left Cyrene a long time ago. I began to feel this tension in the air. Like the people who were outside of the city kind of musing about, you could tell there was a little bit of anxiety. Something was different. I didn't know many people. There was no one really to ask. And so I just tried to find my way. And the closer I got, the more I started to hear this mob. Like this loud cheering and jeering and people screaming, "Crucify him." And I didn't know who they were talking about, and I couldn't see where the person was. But it's like the closer I got, the louder it became, and everyone was in such disarray. Well, as I got closer, I kind of got a glimpse. I wasn't close enough to be near him, but in the distance, I saw the man that everyone was noising about. And he was in a bad state. I mean, I'd seen a lot in my day. I mean, I'd seen folk get beat up or people in bad situations, but I had never seen this type of pain. I mean, the lacerations on his body, the blood that streamed from his head, the sores in his face, it was something I couldn't have written myself. And so I asked someone, like, who is this guy and what had he done? See, crucifixion was something that would have been common in the time, but it was something unique about how much energy was around this particular crucifixion. And then they told me. They said that this was Jesus, the King of the Jews. And I thought to myself, well, this certainly couldn't be the one that I had heard about back at home. I mean, he was one who was regal, full of glory. He was powerful. He was strength. He could speak to the winds and the waves. He could cast out demons. He was unafraid of his critics. But the man that I saw did not appear to be the man of strength that I had heard about. He was weak. He looked broken, despised, rejected, a man acquainted with grief. And so I watched him as my heart sank inside of me. All that was anticipation on the way had now become disappointment because this was not the image I had in my mind. And so I clutched my boys a bit tighter, nestled myself within the crowd, and looked as the others did on this Via Dolorosa as he walked by. And just when I thought that my dismay had been complete, now he had come right past me. And for a moment, we locked eyes. I caught a glimpse of him. And I wanted to hide my face because I'd never looked that deeply into pain before. but he had stumbled. The cross beam that he was carrying was far too heavy for one man who clearly had been beaten all night. And then the officer that is with him, out of all the people that are standing there, points at me. Now he's got to see I've got my sons with me and can't be, removed from them. But this officer orders me to come and to pick up the cross of the man that they call the King of the Jews. And I wondered, what was it about me that made him choose me of all the people that were standing there? And the only thing I could figure is it had to be because of my skin. See, he had the sense, because of the dark complexion that I carry, that I was of African descent. And I imagine in his mind, he thought I was used to carrying other people's burdens. So he pulls me out of the crowd, and now I am yoked next to Jesus, up under the cross that he carries. And here's the most grotesque part. All of the things that befell him were now befalling me. So the blood that spilled from his body was now laying on mine. Those who spat in his face were now spitting in mine. Those who threw garbage and all sorts of things, they were now not just hitting him, but hitting me. It was something to have heard and to have seen from afar, but something altogether different to have the wounds of his body so close to mine. And so we walked, hoping that my boys would know to keep their eyes on me and to move with the crowd so they could stay in the distance, but close enough to perceive where I was. Me and Jesus walked. And we walked all the way to Golgotha's hill. But as we walked, something strange happened. See, at first when I was taken not of my own will from the crowd to get under the burden of this Christ, I was furious, I was irritated, I felt so put upon. But the more we walked, the more my heart began to be softened. It was as if I was feeling what he was feeling. I was walking the path that he was walking. And here's the strangest thing. It was as if I had this epiphany that while I was the one with the injuries, he was the one with the wounds. And he was bleeding for me. It occurred to me that while certainly he was the one that at first had the cross that I got under to support, really, it was probably my cross all along. We get to the hill, to the place where my services were no longer needed. I was released to go, but I just couldn't leave him. I don't know. It was a short encounter, but it revolutionized my life. And in that moment, I felt closer to him than I have felt to anybody in my entire life. And I just didn't have the will to walk away. I wondered where his disciples were. Those who had followed him and been with him. I'd heard there was a group of men that used to travel with him. I couldn't find them, but there were a few women. One man was with her. I suppose that was his mother. I watched as she wept as he hung on that cross. See, what was unique about this experience is that while I came to encounter not just the Passover, but this brilliantly, profoundly strong Savior and King, I saw a different picture, a different image. I saw an image of a man that had taken on all of the sins of creation, and that his strength was not found in how robust his entry. His majesty was not found in the straightness of his back or the lifting of his head. It wasn't found in the strength in his arms or in the parade of those who would have been a part of a king's court. His strength was found completely different. It was found in the sacrifice he made. Because here's what I knew. For that short moment of time when I had to carry the cross, just those few feet to his final resting place, I knew what it was like to have to carry something that in essence didn't belong to me. But this Jesus, This Jesus not only carried the cross the whole way, but he suffered, he bled, and he died. And more than me not being one who's responsible, he was absolutely sinless. That he carried the cross, he suffered, bled, and died because of someone else's sin. And it was at the cross that I first saw the light. And the burdens of my life rolled away. It was there by faith that I finally received my sight. And now I'm happy all the day.